For those of you that follow on Facebook, you know that I revealed a couple of examples over the weekend in picture form, and Parents for Truth President Julie West revealed some more. And it begs the question, is what we're seeing, and by the way, we have another town hall meeting that has been called, this time I believe, well, I can't see it now. I think it's White County. Does that make sense, Tommy? I got a blank. Yeah, White County. They're encouraging all parents this Thursday at 6 p.m. to gather at the White County Library for a meeting about this Islamic teaching going on in our public schools. But the bottom line is, parents, of course, are awakening to this. It's a disproportionate amount of teaching of Islam, virtually none on Christianity or any of the other religions. And, of course, it crosses the line in terms of teaching a culture versus promoting a religion. That's of great concern. And I don't have to tell you that it's completely out of whack in terms of historic accuracy. So a lot of people are outraged. Now, is this a state standard or is this Common Core, a federal standard? Why does Georgia and Los Angeles look like the exact same words and handouts as we're seeing in our schools? Well, that's a good question for Julie West, Parents for Truth President, joining us at 9:41. Good morning, Julie. Looks like we're making no grounds in really getting rid of Common Core.
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't appear like the bureaucrats in Tennessee education seem to be following the directives of the General Assembly, because the General Assembly was very clear that the old standards were to be removed and there was to be a standards rewrite, and there were to be 2 sessions of public review. And what appears to be happening is there appears to be an attempt to count the review period that the governor initiated, that I didn't even waste my time with because it was filled with people from SCORE, that they're trying to count the standards review that took place before the law was even passed requiring the removal of Common Core. So that is...
So we got an antiquated standard, number one. Number two, the Common Core was to be removed immediately, replaced over a period of time. What's first and foremost evident is it has not been removed, and it looks just like Los Angeles, Georgia, and everywhere else.
Right. Now, and I would say they will say that the social studies standards, that, of course, the talking points, Common Core is just math and ELA. Well, then we have next generation science and social studies standards. Regardless, we had Common Core and the literacy standards that covered social studies, but they're identical to what's been controversial in Los Angeles and controversial in Georgia. And by the way, let's face it, this is not conservative Southern people upset that their children are hearing that Islam exists. This is people in Los Angeles being outraged that their kids are being indoctrinated too.
Well, let me start. There's some history in Los Angeles. In fact, Audra Sabash with Mideast Peace Council tried to pull off in Tulsa, Oklahoma, exactly what she pulled off in Los Angeles, and that was to get kids to practice the religion of Islam. I mean, they were taking Muslim names. They were playing jihad games. They were reciting the profession of faith. They were doing the 5 pillars of faith. And so this is not in Tulsa, and this is not in Nashville. This is in Los Angeles. And it was in California that the lawsuits began to fly and say, this is not studying a culture. This is practicing a religion. This is a breach of the Constitution. And they won, and it was removed. Now, they tried to peddle the same thing in Tulsa, and we just infiltrated with our listeners their little brainstorming session with the teachers, and it just kiboshed the whole thing. But there's a history with, not in the South, but in Los Angeles, them standing against this. And, of course, this is exactly what has come back, bought in with Arabic money, and then indoctrinatingly placed into Common Core. But you mentioned that we were supposed to start some hearings on October 1st, and it looks like the only thing we've gotten around to is science, if anything.
Well, and there's supposed to be a review site that is open, okay? I have gone to the review site, and the only thing that is available for review that I have been able to find is the science standards. And by the way, we need people reviewing science standards because those are garbage as well. But the reality is the only reason the legislation was worth passing last session was because parents were guaranteed 2 separate sessions of public review. And I'm telling you, not just me, but legislators have been attempting to find out when it is. For months, we were told, well, another period begins on October 1st. If we can't find it, nobody can. If you've got to search it out and only the inside knows, well, then you don't have a period of public review.
Julie West joining us, Parents for Truth in Education at 9:45. All right, so everybody listening is wanting to know one of two things. Is from the perspective of our children and the curriculum, the testing, and the classroom, is Common Core gone or not?
Oh, it's absolutely not gone. And I'll say, you know, I could have expected much of the same until the new standards roll out in 2017. And I think the thing that's disturbing is that it doesn't seem like the rewrite is taking place at all.
As promised, so, absolutely.
That we should be furious about. But, Michael, I'll tell you the other thing regarding the Islam issue.
Open Records Act, you've got to cover that.
Oh, okay. Well, we have a law firm, ACLJ, on behalf of Tennessee citizens, on behalf of parents of this state, saying, hey, we need to see exactly what you're teaching students in Tennessee regarding Islam. Now, they didn't send the state one open records request requiring them to find all of the millions of things that are being taught statewide. They sent one form to every single school district and simply said, hey, tell us what you're teaching the kids on Islam. The response is, well, that would just be too voluminous, that there's no way.
It would cost millions. Cost millions.
Cost millions. To which I say, well, thank you. You're kind of proving our point for us.
On the quantity front. The quality front we haven't addressed yet.
Right. But so when you have every single district in the state of Tennessee, and by the way, it appears that a familiar name, Chuck Cagle, it appears, may be the one orchestrating that, and the refusals. But when you've got the districts simply saying, we will not comply with an open records request, it's absolutely infuriating. But here's the other thing that absolutely grieves me. Why are our children complying? They're not simply being asked to learn about Islam. They're being asked and told to kneel, face Mecca, and pray a prayer of conversion. We send them away to church camps. We send them away to youth conventions to hear stories and to promise to stand up for Jesus and stand up for the faith. And here is the Shadrach moment. You know, we've heard about the 3 boys being thrown into the fiery furnace because to save their lives, they would not bow. Well, we don't get any clearer than this. Our children are literally being asked to bow to a pagan faith and pray a prayer of conversion. And like sheep, to get a grade, they simply comply. Why aren't we having thousands of students, if not hundreds of students, get up and walk out of class? And there are stories here and there of 1 and 2 and 3 kids across the state saying, you know, you're violating my rights and I'm not going to do this. But the question we as parents and youth ministers, pastors, ask yourselves, why aren't the kids in your church refusing to participate in this nonsense? And if they're going right along, how have we failed them?
Well, I know that there are a lot of parents. I mean, I say a lot. I have gotten messages on Facebook from parents who have clearly sent me the exact, I mean, you know, talk about this Open Records Act. What a joke that is. I mean, I think we've all anecdotally seen now from at least 8 counties actual homework that kids have brought home So I don't think we need Open Records Act to know what's happening in every county in 7th grade in the state of Tennessee. The question is this National Common Core or is this Tennessee Standards? And if it's Tennessee Standards, who's failing us? The Secretary of Education, the governor, the legislature, we got to get to that. But people are outraged and they're getting nowhere, obviously, on this. But I have gotten anecdotally from a handful of parents where it would bring home the homework and then the father would write in big words, my child will not be participating in this lesson. But to your point, I mean, I have 10,000 people on Facebook and I can count on one hand how many have done that. So it is a Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego moment for parents and for students. But again, I always stick up for kids because when you're in 6th and 7th grade, your teachers have a great authoritarian influence over you. And so it really puts kids in a double-minded, difficult position between, well, you know how my parents are with religion, but my teachers, they know best. Or, at best, I have to do this to get a grade. I don't think we should be sending 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old children to the front lines of a cultural war. I think it's for the governors and for the secretaries of education and for the voters and the adults and the citizens of Tennessee to rise up and stop this. But I get your point, and I would probably look more for parents to do it. Now, mine will be gone by the time that happens, and hopefully because of your fighting and my fighting, this issue will be gone by the time my children get to 7th grade, or they'll be in a private school where this won't come up. But for everyone else, we will continue the fight. It's clear to me that Common Core has not been removed, let alone we're not pacing to replacing it properly. And there's a deafness from a governor, a secretary of education, and a legislature on the will of its people who are all outraged. And the most outraged are those who are seeing it, literally. Because I think they think we're telling stories on the radio until their kid comes home with it.
Right. And parents need to have the discussion with their kids ahead of time. And by the way, there are subtle things being brought in as early as kindergarten, but parents need, and certainly we don't expect kindergartners to take some major stand in the fight, but you need to have the discussion with your kids ahead of time. Hey, if this happens, don't take part in it and let me know immediately. And those are the discussions we need to be having with our kids. You know, we have the stranger danger discussions with them. How sad is it that we've reached the point where we've got to talk to them about the dangers in their curriculum?
I wasn't being disagreeable. I mean, we have students in Wyoming at a high school where the principal in Jackson Hole at the high school said, we're not going to have an American Pride Day. It only serves to make all the immigrants feel sad and left out. Well, the students themselves rose up, cloaked in red, white, and blue, and they had it anyway, and they revolted. But that's high school, Julie. I mean, when you're in 7th grade, come on, you're 10. In my case, I think I was 10 or 11 during 7th grade. That's a little early to expect Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego moments of children, not of parents, and not of legislators, and not of governors. But, at best, we would hope the kids would come home and show the homework to parents, some of which are outraged, many of which continue to ignore anyway. But at the moment you're making prayer mats, banners of the 5 pillars of faith, verbally stating the profession of faith, that goes beyond studying to practice a religion. This is something that Muslim indoctrination's been up to for decades. I've just never thought in the buckle of the Bible Belt they'd get away with it, as they seemingly are so far. All right, so writing the governor, writing our legislator, whether it's their state rep or our state senator, and then ultimately parents making sure that they're reading every piece of homework. What other advice do you have in 10 seconds?
Well, and demand to know when the periods of public review are for the social studies standards, the English language arts standards, and the math standards, because we were guaranteed 2 sessions of public review, and if the people can't find them, they never happened.
Anybody here seen Governor Haslam? Julie West, Parents for Truth in Education. You'll find her on Facebook or tweet her at
Julie, the number 4 Truth.
Talk to you next Monday or sooner if conditions warrant. The news is next. It's 9:54.